Greetings AOS fans, got a slightly different video for you today, and what I thought I'd do is we'd do a spotlight video on the fun things that your army likes to include, and that's namely the heroes. There's a lot of beginners starting in with the AOS game, and that's really good, that's really encouraging. And knowing what heroes to throw in can be quite daunting at first. So we're going to shine a nice little spotlight into the face of some of them across all four grand alliances, namely being Order, Death, Destruction and Chaos. And we're just going to go through the kind of the advantages, disadvantages of a few of them. Definitely, if I can, I'll put on personal experience if I've used them, and if I haven't used them, then it'll be from an opponent's point of view. Like, who have I thought has been absolutely insane to fight against, and do I need to take them out earlier on? So yeah, things like that. We're going to do a quick spotlight video on a few of our heroes across the range. We're going to start off, unsurprisingly, with one of my favourite factions. We're going Chaos and we're going Khorne straight away. And we're going to go straight into the Slaughterpriest. You usually find behind the front line of any Khorne army, the Slaughterpriest is the direct link, the voice piece, the herald, the customer support line, if you like, directly back to the Grand Poobah of blood and murder himself, Mr. Khorne, PhD. That's right, he should have an advanced degree in murder. As we all know, Khorne hates magic, even to the point where he will arm his pets with brass collars. But if he hates magic so much, what does he use instead of magic? Surely he would be at a disadvantage, I hear you gasp, if he has to fight other wizards. Well no, he doesn't fight fire with fire as such. He fights fire with something that is hot, flamey and a little bit smoky, but it's definitely not 100% characteristically, deniably not fire. He fights magic with the cunning use of prayers. Okay, so he's just Khorne's unofficial wizard, though he doesn't do magic. Well, yes and no. Prayers, whilst they might appear like spells, are different in a number of ways. Firstly, they are cast on one die instead of two. Alright, fine, that's not much of a difference. But secondly, and this is a big difference, they absolutely, unequivocally cannot be unbound. And that makes them a lot more powerful than spells. And this is where you might find your opponents grumbling against such. Well, I thought Khorne hated magic and now they've got spells that can't be unbound. So now that we've talked about prayers, let's actually have a look at these. In the Khorne battle tome, they are known as Blood Blessings of Khorne, and you've got 6 to choose from. So the first one you can have is Bronzed Flesh. They all go off on a 4-up. And if you're near the skull altar, you can re-roll this. So Bronze Flesh, if it's successful, you can add 1 to save rolls for that unit until the start of the next hero phase, which is pretty strong. Second one, and one of my favourites, is Blood Sacrifice, and this essentially gives you a free blood tithe point in return for blood. So it's very apt. So what you do is you pick a unit within 8 inches, a friendly unit, and it suffers D3 mortal wounds. However, you do get a blood tithe in return, and that just helps you get onto that blood tithe train very early on. Third one I've never really used, Resanguination, mostly because Khorne models only have 1 wound apiece, and also because you have to be wholly within 16 inches of the model. You're kind of generally, the big stuff you're sending forward into combat, and you're generally keeping the Slaughterpriest a bit back, so you're not often within that 16 inches. So I never tend to go for it. Brazen Fury I've never picked, but I can see how it could be useful. It makes a unit immune to battle shock for a turn. I guess you'd pick that if you were going to suicide them. Killing Frenzy is the other one that I use a lot. Add +1 to your hit rolls. With all of these, they last through till the next hero phase. So if you end up getting double turned, your units will stay buffed.
1 foot. Yeah.
Stay buff. Stay buff. Stay buff.
Oh yeah, stay buff.
Yeah.
Stay buffed through your opponent's combat phase as well. And Spellbane Hex, got literally no idea why this is in the book. It's redundant. It's just next to useless. It lets the priest chanting it dispel one endless spell, but he can already dispel an endless spell intrinsically on his war scroll, so it's very, very limited scenario, so I've never seen anyone run that. Right, so yeah, that's the blood blessings, and if that doesn't rub salt in the wound, not only can the Slaughterpriest do this blood blessing, he can also perform a blood-fueled prayer from his war scroll. So he gets the blood blessing from the Khorne battle tome, then he also gets a blood-fueled prayer, and you're usually going to be doing blood boil because it's fucking insane. D6 wounds to any target within 16 inches. Can you imagine your blood being boiled from the inside out? So yeah, pretty much like that. If you're lucky, they can one-shot most regular foot heroes, especially if they've taken a wound or two along the way. The downside is 16 inches isn't very far when you're trying to keep your priest away from combat, so it's not that far at all. Wow, so they could do a prayer and a blessing. That's heavy, Doc. But wait, there's more. Not only can they do a blood-fueled prayer, as well as a blood blessing, they can also do a Judgment of Khorne, which suspiciously looks like an endless spell, but again, for copyright purposes, it's not an endless spell. The difference between a judgment and an endless spell is, again, like the prayers, they cannot be unbound. However, they only stick around for generally a turn or two. So what happens is, once they're out and about, at the end of the battle round, you roll a dice for it, and on a 5 or 6 it stays around, and a 1 to 4 it will disappear. So you have a 67% chance of it disappearing, which is pretty high. So from your opponent's point of view, they don't actually have to unbind it or anything. It generally will go away by itself. Okay, so we've covered the prayers aspect, but apart from blood boil, why is the Slaughterpriest so in demand? Well, here's one of the few ways Khorne can actually buff their troops. Khorne doesn't have many ways to add +1 to, say, a hit characteristic or a save characteristic. Khorne are all about more attacks, more running, more charging, absolutely just pegging it into combat. Once they get into combat, if they haven't been buffed, they tend to deflate faster than a sextol that's been humped one too many times by the neighbour's dog. The Slaughterpriest, especially if he's near the skull altar, is one of the few ways to reliably give your troops that buff. And not only can he buff your troops, it's not limited to mere mortals, he can buff your demon troops as well. Take old Ragey here, hits on a 4-up, but wounds on a 2+, with the money shot rolling 6s to wound, causing 4 mortal wounds within a 16-inch bubble around him. Now that's heavy and can actually win you a game if you roll it well. The problem is, he has a 4-up save, and only 14 wounds on him, so not only is he squishy, he degrades. You don't have to kill him for him to be rendered as useless as a chocolate teapot. If you used one Slaughterpriest to cast Killing Frenzy, for example, to give him +1 to hit, and another one casting Bronzed Flesh to give him +1 to save, he's now rushing headfirst into combat with a 3-up save. 2+ if you're running the Baleful Lord Slaughterhost, which gives you the +1 to your save artifact. Then he's hitting on 3s, re-rolling 1s because he's the greater demon, and wounding on 2s with the potential for 4 to 20 mortal wounds to each unit within 8 inches. That's why the Slaughterpriest can be so terrifying, because his abilities can't be undone, and they can be made more reliable by being in proximity to the skull altar. So as an opponent, all you can do is hope that he just rolls badly and whiffs the prayers that he's going for. For me, that is why the Slaughterpriest is an auto-include in pretty much every list I build, and I will always try to get 2 of them in there, as 1 doesn't seem reliable enough, but with 2 or more you can really accelerate your game, especially if you pick the blessing that gives you extra blood type points. And there we have it. That's my take on the Slaughterpriest. He's a really key component from my Khorne armies, and it took me ages to get him involved when I first started in AOS, because I started off, as most people do, with a start collecting box, so I'd only have one Slaughterpriest, and kind of found out he wasn't really that good, because at the time the Skull Altar wasn't there, and in order for you to re-roll your hits you needed the Gore Pilgrims battalion, but they've kind of rejigged it around with the new battle tome, so definitely re-rolling helps. But yeah, if when I just had the one, he really didn't do much, so which is why you'll always see me carry out field at least 2 Slaughterpriests, and if I can keep them close to the Skull Altar, the better. It doesn't always happen because you kind of need to move your troops around, but yeah, that's it. So that really helped me. Hopefully it helped you. Next few videos we're going to be looking at order, destruction and death. So if you guys have got any recommendations or any heroes that you kind of think are pretty cool that you want us to cover, that would be great. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, that would be great. If you could share it or subscribe if you haven't, that would be even better. But stay safe guys, and hopefully we'll see you guys on the next one. Catch you later.